The marriage energy that changed how fans see love. FREENBECKY. Introduction. When love is recognized before it is named. Sometimes love announces itself loudly. And sometimes it doesn't announce itself at all. It simply exists, steady and undeniable, until people begin to notice the way it reshapes a room. That is how many fans describe the connection between Freen Sorocha and Becky Armstrong. Not as a rumor. Not as a confirmed relationship. Not even as a mystery that demands answers. But as a feeling. A feeling so grounded, so emotionally coherent, that millions across the world began using the same unexpected phrase to describe it. Marriage energy. This wasn't about paperwork, ceremonies, or legality. It was about something far older and more human. The sense that two people have quietly chosen each other in a way that no longer needs explanation. And in doing so, FREENBECKY didn't just capture attention. They subtly, profoundly changed how fans think about love itself. What fans really mean by marriage energy. Marriage energy is not romance in its loudest form. It is not fireworks. It is not chaos. It is not constant display. Marriage energy is emotional maturity made visible. Fans describe it as emotional steadiness, a mutual grounding, unspoken coordination, a comfort that doesn't perform. It is the difference between attraction and alignment. When fans looked at FREENBECKY, what they noticed wasn't intensity, it was ease. Two people who seemed regulated rather than reactive, aware of each other without hovering, protective without control, present without pressure. This kind of energy usually appears after years of shared life. Yet here it was, quietly visible in public moments, and people felt it instinctively. Chemistry attracts. Commitment holds. The entertainment industry is filled with chemistry. Chemistry sells. Chemistry excites. Chemistry creates noise. But chemistry alone rarely lasts. What made FREENBECKY different was that their bond did not depend on spectacle. It deepened in stillness. Fans began noticing how silence between them never felt awkward. How their body language adjusted naturally. How neither seemed to compete for attention. How emotional reassurance replaced dramatic gestures. This was not the energy of people trying to convince an audience of something. It was the energy of people who already felt secure. That distinction matters, because security is not something you fake convincingly for long. The power of not explaining themselves. In an era where celebrities are expected to clarify everything, Freen and Becky chose something radical. They didn't explain. They didn't confirm. They didn't deny. They didn't dramatize. They simply continued showing up, consistently, calmly, together. And in doing so, they allowed people to witness behavior instead of narratives. This silence wasn't avoidance. It was self-possession. And fans understood that. Because love that feels real often doesn't rush to justify itself. Why LGBTQ+ fans felt this so deeply. For LGBTQ+ audiences, love has historically existed under conditions of scrutiny. Many queer people grow up learning to read between the lines, to recognize safety before labels, to value consistency over declarations, to trust actions more than announcements. So when LGBTQ+ fans watched FREENBECKY, they weren't projecting fantasies. They were recognizing familiar patterns. Patterns of emotional refuge, a mutual protection, coded intimacy, quiet loyalty. This is why so many queer fans said, "I don't need confirmation. I recognize this." Because for communities whose love has often been invisible, recognition itself becomes affirmation. The small moments that carried the most weight. No single viral clip created the FREENBECKY phenomenon. It was accumulation. Moments like instinctively standing closer in crowded spaces. A subtle hand placements meant to steady, not display. Glances that communicated reassurance. Immediate emotional attunement in stressful settings. These are not performative habits. They come from familiarity, from repetition, from trust. Fans didn't fall in love with a storyline. They fell in love with consistency. How this changed the fan definition of romance. Before FREENBECKY, romance was often imagined as dramatic, consuming, unstable, emotionally intense. After FREENBECKY, fans began articulating something else entirely. They started saying, "Well, I want peace. I want safety. I want something that feels like home." Love stopped being defined by how loudly it announces itself, and started being defined by how secure it feels to live inside. This shift is cultural, and it matters. Why this was never just a ship. Ships are fueled by fantasy. FREENBECKY was fueled by observation. Fans didn't invent moments. They archived them. They remembered how. Neither overshadowed the other. Neither diminished themselves to elevate the other. Both remained emotionally present. This was not a projection machine. It was a mirror. Marriage as emotional structure, not ceremony. At its core, marriage is not a wedding. It is a system. System of a shared emotional labor, a mutual regulation, protection under pressure, long-term consideration. Fans recognized that system already operating within FREENBECKY. No rings required. No vows needed. Just behavior that made sense over time. Why the internet couldn't move on. The internet forgets quickly. But FREENBECKY lingered. Not because of new content, but because of emotional memory. People remembered how they felt watching them. And feelings rooted in safety don't disappear easily. When a duo becomes a reference point. For many fans, FREENBECKY became a reference. Not a fantasy. Quiet standard. Something that answered the question. What should love feel like? Not perfect. Not dramatic. But grounded. The radical idea that love doesn't owe us proof. Perhaps the most revolutionary thing about FREENBECKY is this. They never asked permission to exist as they were. And they never asked fans to validate them. In a culture obsessed with access, they modeled boundaries without coldness. And fans respected that. Why this matters beyond celebrity culture. This story is not really about two public figures. It is about how people are learning to value emotional intelligence, mutual respect, quiet commitment. In a world loud with performance, FREENBECKY reminded people of something ancient. Love does not need witnesses to be real. Conclusion. The love that taught people how to feel safe again. Whether Freen and Becky ever confirm anything is almost beside the point now. Because what they already gave people was this. A new emotional language. A reminder that love can be steady, mutual, protective, unannounced, and that sometimes the most meaningful commitments are the ones you feel, not the ones you're told about. That is the marriage energy that changed how fans see love. And that is why FREENBECKY still matters.